Everybody, hope you're all having a great night so far. I guess let's go ahead and get started. So today I'll work more on the 2D lights project. I've done a little research and I think we might have to try to combine the textures like in a different way than I originally thought. So it looks like the way to do it is basically to use the camera to render 4 textures or 4 masks to the 4 different textures, and then we'll have another shader which will take in those 4 textures and combine them into one texture basically. And yeah, that's what I'm going to focus on for now. Later on we'll want to have a shader that will combine multiple small textures into one big texture. But well, I don't know if how we'd have to do that is basically here we'd have the 4 different textures, the red, green, blue, and alpha. And then if we want to have, say, 4 different sections on one shader, the easiest way to do that would be to have 16 shaders here, and I'm not sure if there's a limit to the properties, so I'll need to look into that. If there are, there's ways we can get around it, but it would we'd have to like use 2 separate shaders, and I'm not sure how much that would impact impact performance, because we'd have to have a shader to render every mask into a certain channel, and then we'd have to have another shader to basically piece all those textures into one texture. But so either way we can get around it. And you might be thinking, why don't we just use, like, textures have, so let me see if I just have this texture 2D, and see, text have a set pixels, which we can set the pixels directly. This is extremely slow, which is a bit of a shame because it would definitely be the easiest way to do this, but it's much, much faster if you use shaders to work with textures in general. So another thing I want to do is try and clean up this object. There's just way too much here. So I think I'll start on that, because in order to test this we'll need to be able to support 2 separate lights anyway, and this code is just way too unwieldy. So I'm not going to worry about using my like Beluga infrastructure for this prototype, so I'll just have some object that will hold data that's common to this whole pipeline. So let's call this lights data, I guess is fine. Oops, it's supposed to be a Unity engine. Oops. tooltip covered up. Okay, and I didn't. Did I use the namespace? I did here, but not on the light mesh creator. Well, if I did, sometimes we might as well go all out. Wait. Cut out lights. Okay, so now we're all set up to go. And this needs to be public so Unity can put it onto a component or put it on a game object. But this won't actually have any functions. It will basically just have all the data that we had here. So I guess we'll need to have a list of lights and a list of colliders. Oh, because I'm not using the generics. Oh wow, looks like my internet dropped, but it seems to be better now. So we'll have, right now we'll just support box colliders. So these will be box colliders. And then we'll have another list. Okay, so now we don't really have any metadata about a light, we just need to know its position, so I'll just have transform lights. And then I guess we'll have some code or a component I can add to each of these colliders which would automatically import or add itself to that list. So let's get rid of that. Or, I mean, I could... Yeah, maybe we should just make this set up at the beginning of the game, because otherwise we'd have to worry about how would the game know what order these are when something new is added. So yeah, we'll just go with that to make things easier on myself. Oh, the collider's not there. Got all three, and then we have one light now. Okay, so we'll need to... This will just be an old object, and I'll basically take each of these functions. Well, I guess we don't really need to have this visualizer anymore. No, well, it might be useful, but I guess we can always add that back in later. So what we really need is this code, the shadow mesh drawer. Yeah, this one won't be a mono behavior actually. Shadow mesh creator. I guess we can go ahead and pass it the light data. And then I'll have public. Why don't we have like one of these objects for each light, so we pass the light, or the data, and then the light index. second, my cat wants out of my room. I'll be right back. Alright. Okay, so I guess we'll just have public void. What do I want to call this? I guess create is fine. Or maybe update. So yeah, we want to basically copy these two functions out. So I mean, technically all of the shadow mask creators could kind of share all this data. Yeah, so why don't, doesn't need to have a separate light index now that I think about it. At least not in this implementation. So yeah, let's change this from so create for light. Okay, so what do we need here? We need all of this stuff. I'll just go ahead and copy it. And I'm not going to worry about fixing up the algorithm yet, although I went in detail last time about all the different ways we could optimize it. And then we need to move. This only has to happen in the constructor. Okay, so we will need the material. The material actually, now that I think about it. So I guess this was just a white texture. We might as well get that data from somewhere. Shadow material. Call it a shadow mesh material. Okay, so now, yeah, this doesn't need to change at all. And then down here, this will basically be the same except I need that wall collision function. Except where we get the transform for the light, we'll actually use a specific index. So this is data colliders. Where's the light? Okay, yeah, the light point. So it only, yeah, this is the only part that uses it. Okay, so I need to pass one other thing here, the light index. And so that'd be data, lights, light index dot position. Okay, so we're good there. Okay, so now I guess I need a new class that will basically call this mesh creator. So Yeah, we just need like a complete control class that every frame just updates everything in order. Yeah, this should be probably a mono behavior. So I'll just make a normal class so that I can, namespace will be generated for me. So I guess let's just call this light controller, or maybe light manager, light mask manager. This will be a mono behavior. Okay, and I need to using Unity engine. This song is loud. Oops. Okay, so we'll need to get the light data, which we can just call getComponent on the start function. And we'll have the update, if I can spell it right. So this class will hold a shadow mesh creator for each light. Oh no, actually, we only need one, I forgot. Shadow mesh creator. And then we'll also need a reference to the camera, which I might as well just put up here. So public camera, shadow camera, because we'll have to call camera render. And then we'll need a lot more information to when we go about combining textures and everything. But so I guess the last thing we'll need is just to put render texture, or it could just be a texture 2D actually. And this will be the final mask. Or I guess let's just call it mask texture. Okay, so cutout render on update. Yeah, it just creates the meshes and then calls this render. Okay, so we'll want to get so we'll just create the render textures programmatically here because we're going to have a whole lot of them, but for now we're just going to work with one. Because I want to try and replicate what we had before. So texture equals new render texture. So width 640, 480. We don't need a depth buffer. Okay, so that's set up. Oh, and we also need to create the shadow creator, of course. Okay, so in order to replicate the code we had before, we'll do shadow creator, create for light 0, and then we have the data, shadow camera, render. And before we had a shader, but I don't think we'll actually need that. Although I guess if I want to replicate the code or how it worked before, we'll need to do it. Or I guess I should. So data, shadow camera, target. I guess since we don't switch the texture around, I can just do it right there. And also data. Okay, that doesn't work. Okay, I thought that render texture was a child class of texture 2D. Maybe it's, well, obviously it's not, so. Oops. Okay, so I think we're all set here. Yeah, so this is the part that creates the mesh for the light. Where do I set the material though? Let me look. Oh, probably it's just this test light. Yeah, so it already had the material set right there. Oh, so this can still work the same, except I'll need to basically set the texture on this material to whatever is in this light data. So again, the ordering is going to be slightly annoying. I guess I can go ahead and create this on the awake. Oh no, that doesn't sound good to me. So yeah, the light mesh creator, I'll just have private bool initialized, and then on the first update, if initialized is false, we can actually unenable. Okay, yeah, so this is a little redundant. We can actually just, we only want to update on the very first frame, so we can set enable to false afterwards, which will cause the update function to no longer run. But what I just want to happen is get component mesh renderer shared material main texture equals find object of type lights data mask texture. So all this does is just sets the texture to what's on the lights data. Okay, so shadow mesh material, what is this? Right here. And the mask texture will be created. So the only other thing I need to do is, in order to get everything to work the way it used to, is I actually need to render with shader. Which I need to get a reference to that in the lights data. Which this will be temporary because our new system won't need it. So shader, camera, shader. Alright, so if I set this all up, and what was the shader we actually used here? It was render to red, wasn't it? Okay, so let's play and see what happens. Variable shadow camera and light data has not been assigned. Oh. Yeah, that's pretty important. Okay, so object reference not set. And data box colliders. So either the data... Oh, I didn't save the data. So yeah, this data equals data. Okay, so now it looks like it's working, except the light isn't rendering correctly. And I know yesterday I started working a bit with shaders, so I'm not sure if I messed it up or not. Okay, so let's go ahead and re-enable the texture visualizer. We can just copy this to this manager just temporarily. Create visualizer. So I need the test material. Okay, I can just... Yeah. Actually, some of the stuff that I put in the lights data doesn't actually need to be there, like this camera shader. I could actually just go in the manager itself. And then public material. Test visualizer. The visualizer stuff could actually go in a different class now that I think about it. Oh, this should be test visualizer material. Sorry about that, I forgot to turn the music back on. This is data mask texture. Okay, so this should still work. Did I set this to test material? No, that's not. Okay, let's try it with that and see what happens. Oh, I forgot to call the script to actually create the visualizer, didn't I? So yeah, create visualizer. Call the function, I mean. Okay, so the mask is still working. Well, I guess that's the important thing. Something is wrong with the light though. So let's look. Light mask. Oh, it's because I'm setting the main texture. It actually needs to be the mask texture. So shared material dot set texture. What is it? I think I just called it mask. I guess one way to look. this actually just selects the channels. We probably won't even use that. Yeah, I called it mask. Okay, so we should be good to go now. Okay, sort of. Let's see if at least the light masks out. Okay, so that works, but for some reason the alpha channel isn't. Oh, because this texture wasn't set anymore. Okay, there we go. So now it looks like the game is once again working how we had it before we started cutting things apart. Again, some of the shadow mesh is not perfect because, as I said before, it doesn't take into account the lights or the shadow taking up or hitting more than one wall, so sometimes you can actually see part of the light, but we can see it's actually masking everywhere on the texture. That's light blue is being masked out of the light. Also, it looks different in the editor window because we had to code the shader not the best way. It has the screen size actually hard coded into the shader, which since this editor has a different screen size, it makes it not work the same way. But the game view, of course, is what we really care about, and it works fine there. Okay, so now let's get rid of this player. Okay, so now everything is working how we had it before, and what I want to try and do is add a second light. So where's that? I had it selected before. Okay, so let's comment this out again. And then the shadow mesh creator, or wait, the lights data. We'll want to have, well, let's see, how do I want to do this? Well, I guess we could test having just a separate mask for both lights, but that's not going to really help us much because we know we're not going to have that in the final product. So what I think I need to do, basically what we'll do is the camera will render each mask or each light's mask into one texture, and then we'll combine those two textures using a shader. So let me look up something real quick. Unity material. And I'm hoping that there's a way that I can just call or cause a shader to render using a material. I need to do a little bit. Didn't have a chance to research it earlier. So basically what all we need to do is just like we need to set all the textures onto a certain material and then just have it run the shader. Which I'm sure there's got to be some way to do. If not, I'm going to be kind of stumped. Let's see here. So Unity run shader attached to material. So maybe let's just try running a shader by itself and see what comes up. It seems like it's just wanting... I mean, I guess we could render it from a camera, but we basically just want to do like a... what's it called? Post-processing effect. Let's see. That's, I think, the keyword. Post-processing shader. Okay, maybe it's... Seems like we might need to use this graphics Blit, but I'm not sure what the source texture would be. What does this one do? It only has a source, so maybe this one just runs the material. I wish I had a better... I had a better description there. Although maybe this will just make it run to the screen, which is not what I want. Because we usually, graphics Blit will like copy one texture to another texture, which is what we want to do kind of, but the material, because we want to combine everything using a material. So maybe how we do that, let's start writing a shader and see if we can figure it out. There's also these compute shaders I looked into a lot, but they don't work on all platforms. And they're made actually for kind of doing what we're doing, where we're not, well, we are kind of using graphics so we're writing to a texture, but if you wanted to just like compute some kind of algorithm on the graphics card, that's one way to do it. Okay, so this will be, this will be the shader that will combine everything to one channel, or combine 4 textures to one, so 4 texture to 1. Okay, and this kind of what we'll start with. Although it'll be even simpler than this. It's not gonna indent for me. Okay, so this will be 4 textures to 1. So I think the main texture is what the graphics Blit is going to put the source into. Yeah, the Blit sets destination to the render target and source to the main text property of the material. I wonder, well, I guess it doesn't really matter, but we can use that. We'll just set the other textures in as separate little texture properties. Okay, so this will be green text, and then we'll have blue and alpha. So this can be, this will be fine. We actually don't really need this blend at all. So I think I'll comment this out, and we can just use a default. Okay, so I don't think, I'm not sure if this is even needed since we're just doing a post-processing effect, but I'll just leave it in case. It's not going to hurt anything. So I can simplify this. Basically, we'll just want to return a fixed 4 for color and red from the main texture. And then we'll just go down the line. Now, when we render, I'm going to actually change it so that the mask just renders like all the shadows in white. So actually, maybe we need to subtract 1 here. And this is the green texture. We set to the green value and then new combined texture. And blue text. Finally, oh right, I just need to get 1 value from it. Text 2D, alpha text. Okay, so we don't need the channel select. So again, what this does is it takes basically the color from the main texture and puts it into the combined textures red, and then it does that for each of these, and we also need to invert them, which I guess I could simplify this by writing out 1 minus fix 4, so we don't have to have a 1 minus in here, because in the shader language you can, this just means that we'll distribute this 1 minus into each component basically. Okay, and one other thing I need to do is, I forgot I have to set these values for each of my new textures. So green, blue, and alpha. I'm not. This transform text is probably not needed either. But let's just make sure this works how it is, and I can look into removing it. Okay, so now undeclared identifier blue. Oh, I keep writing text. It's supposed to be text. Tend to do that a lot. Incorrect number of arguments to numeric type constructor at line 53. It's 1, 2. Oh, I forgot to do the .r at the end. Okay, there we go. Okay, so now I'm going to like obviously in our final game we'll want to have different, like we won't want to be stuck to requiring 4 different lanterns or 4 different lights, but for now, since I'm not sure what will happen and I don't really want to have to worry about having a null texture in that shader, we'll just stick with 4 lights. This should be green here just to keep the order. And alpha. I think I'll open up. Just a second, I need to open up my spriting thing because I want to change this color to white so I can recolor it. Let's see. This will just take a second. Just this way we'll be able to tell which light corresponds to which. Maybe we can leave the lantern orange and I'll change the actual light's color. That might be better actually. I guess it doesn't make much difference. Okay, I don't know why it's taking so long to load up. Alright, there we go. Thank you for waiting. So we have the light here. Okay, so we'll just need a red, green, and blue one. Let's do this by creating different frames here. And then the alpha one, how about I just have that be white? Okay, so now, yeah, they're all in here. I'll get rid of that one. Set there too, and point filtering and no compression. Okay, so we're I guess we just set up a different material for each, which kind of defeats the purpose. Okay, so yeah, I just realized, yeah, in the final version, because the whole reason that we're trying to combine all the masks into one texture is so that all the lights can be drawn in one draw pass, which would save quite a bit of renders. But if we change the texture with just the display graphics, that kind of defeats the purpose. So what we'd have to do is combine these lights basically into an atlas like Unity does, except we'd probably have to handle it ourselves. Yeah, I don't want to do that right now, so I think I will end up just recoloring the lanterns, which will be fine. I'll do the same thing. And then the alpha will be white. Let's make it pink so it's visible. So I'll just use this white one, I think. Okay, so we got the lantern, and then green. Oops, wrong thing. And then the light here for the main texture we'll want to set like 3. Okay, and everything still works for now. Of course the other lights won't. Well, no, they still will interact with the mask, but obviously the other lights don't actually create the mask. But that's what we're working towards right now. So let's move these around so they don't start stacked on top of each other. And then system, we need to add a bunch more here. Okay, I still don't think it. Yeah, I definitely won't render the other lights yet, even though they are hooked up into that list at least. Okay, so now what we need to do is, let's see, for int I equals 0. Okay, no, I can't do that because for now I'm just going to assume 4 lights and we'll expand on this. And it'll need a bunch of render textures. We'll need 1 for each light and then 1 for the final, so this will be the mask texture. Oops. And then we'll need 1 for each of the lights, so light textures. Should we farm this out to a different class? Well, let's just write it here, and then if it gets big, we can move it somewhere else. So again, we'll just have 4 for I equals 0, I less than light textures. Length equals new. Oops. And I think I can just give it the mask texture and it will copy the values from it. Okay, so first we need to create the light for 0. And then I need to set the render target to the light texture 0. And then it will render without the shader. So I guess this works fine. So we can just loop through here. So for int I equals 0, I less than 4. And after that, we need to combine them all, or set them all in that material. So I can just create the material here. So combine material. The shader, I guess we'll just call shader.find. I think that should work. Okay, and this is the weird part just because of the way the graphics Blit works, but we'll just basically, we only set the textures for the second, third, and fourth lights. So green text equals light textures 1. And then the red texture, otherwise known as the main texture, is set by the graphics Blit function. So that's what we'll call here. And the source is the light textures 0, which is the red function, and the output is the mask texture. And I think that should be it. I guess one other thing, need to make sure this camera is set up correctly. So the background now will actually be black, and the material for the shadows should be white. So we just want a plain black texture. I guess I can just create a new one. 32, oops. That's not black, is it? Okay, so we'll just call this shadow black. And that, we have to do that because for some reason the unlit color shader worked a little strangely. And we could create our own shader here, which I might do later, but I don't think it's needed. Okay, and let's go ahead and turn on the visualizer. Okay, so now we should create the mask, and I think these lights will probably not work correctly, but hopefully the visualizer will give us something interesting. Okay, so the shadow mesh obviously runs 4 times, but I guess since the alpha light is the one that runs last, it's what actually gets displayed in the editor. But unfortunately, it looks like this went back to. Oh wait, I think I messed up, didn't I? I did this backwards. This should be pure white. Guess now the name is a little wrong, but we'll get the job done. Okay. Well, that's not right, is it? Well, obviously, yeah, everything is inverted now. Did the graphics Blit work? Well, that's the only time anything ever gets written into the mask texture. Oh, I guess I should remove this just in case. So that wasn't the problem. And it seems like the mask is not updating though. Or maybe it's only tied to one of them? Okay. Yeah, so it's only taking the red into account. But it's still all white, which is a little weird. I wonder if it found the shader correctly. Let's just take that possibility out. I need to make these public since I had to serialize. So combo shader. I just want to make sure that something isn't going wrong with this shader find. Okay, so it looks like that wasn't the issue. Seems like the mask is only taking the red into account, which is a little weird. And it seems like it's not actually using the shader. Oh, I didn't give the I didn't set the material here. Okay, yeah, that's kind of important, isn't it? Okay. Well, I guess I'll just leave that shader thing and we can go back to shader find. Oh yeah, so now the mask looks pretty crazy, but as you can tell, it's actually working just right, I think. If I get the blue light out of the way, we can see basically it turns yellow, which is absence of blue. Yeah, that's right. And then the red is cyan, which is absence of red. And then blue. Oh yeah, it's yellow like I just said. And green should be magenta. Does the alpha one affect anything? Oh, it does. Yeah, we can see places where it's just invisible is where the alpha light is being affected. So yeah, the mask texture is being drawn correctly, but it looks like the lights don't use the correct mask. They just are only using, actually I'm not sure which color. Oh, it looks like red, which is how we originally wanted it. But now each of the lights can have its own channel. So let's see. Let me check. So we have 9 batches here. That's probably... No, the lights should all share one. Oh, there's a bunch of batches because it has to draw the shadows, so that's 4. I think we take out the system. That's actually 5. Maybe the Blit counts as a batch, I guess. The frame rate's still good. Let's actually look and see what it looks like. Profiler. Okay, well the rendering is definitely bigger now. Which is I feel like there's gotta be some better way to do this, but some drawing. How the render drawing takes the most. Well, one way that we can speed this up a whole lot is that in the final thing, each mask will only be as big as the actual sprite. It won't be the whole screen, so that's going to speed things up a whole lot. So yeah, I shouldn't worry about this stuff too much. Although it's really not that bad, even as is. Okay, so what do we need to do now? So the light mesh creator. So the whole point is that these materials, like drawing each of these shouldn't incur a whole nother, what am I trying to say, draw call. But I think if I set a different value in the material, it might trigger another draw call. But I guess there's only one way to find out. Okay, so let's see here. Maybe it won't, because maybe only textures trigger another draw call. I'm not exactly sure of all the specifics. So we'll just use a color as the channel selector. It's the easiest way. So channel select. Okay, so I have this. I guess let's just create a new one. I should really make another folder for shaders, shouldn't I? So another unlit shader, and we'll call this select channel mask. And I can pretty much copy this mask from red. Oh, one other thing I want to do is in the manager, remove that and just use shader find. Just actually make sure it works with that. Alright, good. So here, I'm gonna get, where's the other mask? Yeah, this shadow mask creator, which we don't actually use anymore. It had this channel select, which I'll just go ahead and copy. So again, we'll just use this kind of hacky thing because it works for now. So the color, the mask. So how would I do this? Basically I need to collapse the mask down into one value. Fixed alpha equals channel select R. Okay, yeah, channel select R times, well actually I could just do, oh no, I don't know if that would work. Oh wait, is it the dot product, isn't it? Okay, so let's be fancy here. I think I can call, because if you don't know, the dot product is basically x times x, oops, plus y times y. I think that's right. My brain is a little fried at this point of the night, but so I can call channel select and the mask. And what this will do is it multiplies every component and adds them together. And the channel select, every component will be 0 except for the one that we actually want to care about. So that basically just selects one value from the color, one channel. And then we'll multiply that by the actual alpha of the sprite. That's how the mask will work. Expected token return. Oh, again, keep on. Whenever I work in this, I always think I'm in Lua mode. Okay, I don't know why it always does that. Okay, so here we only want red, and here only green. Again, I hope changing these doesn't cause to have a draw call for each light. That would be a problem. And I'm not sure how I would go about fixing it. Okay, so, but first, let's just move around the lights. So we'll start with red. Okay, it's masking itself. And then green is not masking itself. It's still on the red. Oh, that's because I didn't change to use the new shader, did I? Did I mess up again? Oh, I hate it when I do this. I think, yeah, I've been working on the mask from red shader. Also, okay, so if I just copy this and did the actual shader I meant to work in, and I can just undo everything from here and get back to how it was. It's not updating. Oh, I did it wrong again. That should be here is what I want to copy to. And then I would just undo this again. Okay, so yeah, now everything is here. Yeah, we can't set the mask yet. Okay, so let's try it. Again, they're only working on the red light. So what if I change this? So yeah, now they're working on the alpha light. I guess they're still sharing that texture. Maybe it's because I'm using the shared material, but I think that's going to like break it apart and cause more draw calls. Oh, I never set the... oh gosh. I never set the channel select here. Okay, so material, set, color, channel select. Okay, so hopefully, crossing fingers, this won't cause draw calls for each. Okay, and they are masking themselves out, at least alpha, and then blue is not affected by that, but it does mask itself. And green looks good, and red. Okay, so that is working at least, but how many draw calls is it? 12. Okay, that's not looking good. Nope, they each have their own draw call, just because they have a different channel select value. And that kind of defeats the whole purpose of all this combining textures into one. There's got to be another way to do it. I'm not sure what that is. But actually, looks like I'm out of time now anyway. Okay, well, we got multiple lights working at least, and we did combine texture together, which yesterday I was really confused about, so I'm glad I figured that out. But if I can't get this part working in Unity, I mean, it kind of defeats the purpose of everything I've been trying to work on. And yeah, so I just need to figure out somehow to set this channel select in the shader in such a way that doesn't trigger a separate draw call. Yeah, so I'll need to do some research on that. But everybody, I do appreciate you coming out and watching, so thank you. Tomorrow I might work more on this, or if I'm stumped, maybe I'll go back to Lizard Tamer for a little bit. Work on some programming there, or maybe even modeling, I haven't decided. but that should be around 8:30 Eastern. If you want to catch up on this stream or any previous, I upload everything to YouTube, which you can look or get to from my channel description or by typing !YouTube in chat. Also, I have a Discord channel if you want to talk to me or other viewers. I'd really love to have you there, so feel free to look at my channel in video description or type !Discord in chat to get an invite. And yeah, that's about it. Thanks again, everybody, and hope to see you tomorrow. Have a good night. Bye-bye.